Hello folks, welcome back. Today is November 5th. It's about 60 degrees this morning. It's going to be cloudy most of the day today. Won't have a lot of bee activity, not that there's much for them to do. Everything is done blooming for the year. You see them out kind of scouting around, scavenging a little bit. I've got some stacks of empty boxes. I see them collecting a little bit of propolis off of the old boxes that I've got set aside. So they're still doing a little maintenance on the inside. There's nothing coming in, no pollen, no nectar. I was in all the hives about 2 weeks ago. Brood rearing is basically done. Very small patches of brood. Basically they're done with that. So today we're going to go through and do a little follow-up oxalic acid treatments. Being that the majority of the mites are exposed, this should really knock them back really good. We did some a couple weeks ago also. We did some mite treatments earlier this year with the formic acid. Most of the hives, the mite load is pretty low. Most of them, not all of them. This time of year when there's no brood, the oxalic acid really kind of cleans them up. So I'll do some now, and I'll do some here in about 3 weeks again. So I thought I'd kind of bring you along, kind of show you some of the hives. A lot of people asking how the spring flow was for us and how our Demaree did. I did Demaree on all of the production hives. I had 0 swarming this year. It worked really well. All of the hives produced at least 100 pounds of surplus spring honey. Some of the hives did as high as 175 pounds of surplus spring honey. Now to put that into perspective, typically if you wait and do a split, pull a split off in the spring, so you're down not having a queen for a couple weeks there, then they finally requeen themselves. Typically that type of method prevents swarming, but in this part of the country you're typically only going to get 60 to 80 pounds of surplus honey. So by doing the Demaree, the hives produced big colonies, big populations, and they did produce a lot of honey. About 3 or 4 weeks ago we went through, we replaced all of the queens and all of the production hives. We pulled the old queens out and put young queens that we raised here on the farm this year. Most of the queens were raised in July, some in August. So they're nice young queens that have never had that big spring explosion of egg laying. So all of these hives have been replaced except for one with young queens. And there's one that I left my best queen in. I'm going to do something different in the spring with her. So as the videos progress next spring, I'll show you what I'll be doing with her. But overall, real happy with how the hives did. They were healthy this year. They produced a lot of surplus honey. This fall they did really well. We had nothing over the summer coming in. We had a good fall flow. All of them produced a tremendous amount of fall honey. I did not take any this year. I kind of spread the wealth. We had a lot of late season queen rearing, so we had a lot of hives that they were able to produce a decent winter nest, but they didn't have a lot of food. So I was able to take surplus boxes of honey off and drop them on some of those. So we kind of spread all the boxes of honey around. I just didn't pull any off for our use. I really like fall honey, but I didn't pull any this year. So today I'm just going to go around, kind of show you, my hive setups going into winter. We're going to do some oxalic acid treatments. We've got a lot of hives. I still have a lot of equipment to pick up and get put away for the year. Some of the empty boxes and frames will get put in the barn. Some of them will actually be, you can hear the geese going over. Some of them will actually just be stacked up on pallets. I'll put a queen excluder down, drop all the boxes on, another queen excluder, put a top on. Queen excluder keeps mice from getting in them, so you can kind of even store them outside that way. We'll have some cold weather coming in pretty soon. I've not really had any moth damage this year. We're slowly getting all of the mouse excluders put on all the hives. And actually, good example, this is actually an entry queen excluder. Works great as a mouse guard. So I've got them on some of them. So we still got a little bit of fall maintenance to do. And I just thought I'd kind of do a quick video and kind of show everybody what I'm doing to get ready for winter. Stick around. Here are two more of the production hives going into next spring. They both have young queens. You'll see one is a deep and a medium, and the other one is a double deep. I typically use a deep and a medium at most, but I did go ahead and put in some of my deep boxes for fall. They had a lot of honey, just kind of left some of them on. That way in the spring, as I'm moving things around, pulling splits, making up nukes, I got a lot of deep frames I can use there. But they got more than enough food going into winter for this part of the country especially. They are talking about maybe having a harsh winter this year, so I wanted to make sure everybody did have plenty of food. But the boxes are really backfilled really good. So not much bee activity this morning, still a little cool. If the sun was out, I'm sure they'd be flying, but I see them kind of milling around the entrance a little bit, and one here and there going. That's about it. Here's a couple more production hives going into winter. Entries are facing opposite directions on these. The nuke box there in the middle is empty. I tend to keep a lot of nuke boxes sitting around just so I can set a frame of bees, or even the frame with the queen off to the side as I'm doing inspections. The one on the left, yeah, I still got at least one extra box of honey on top of it. I'm not sure if I'll leave it on there, pull it off, give it to somebody else. I think everybody's got plenty of honey going into winter. More than enough surplus. I don't need that much going into winter in this part of the country. I really like the polystyrene boxes. If you've seen some of my other videos, they got the pros and cons, but I really like them. But yeah, here's a couple more. Actually, the one on the left there did produce 175 pounds of surplus spring honey. A tremendous amount of fall honey too. The one on the right didn't do quite as well in the spring. It produced over 100 pounds of spring honey, but it really put on a good fall crop. Kind of interesting how each hive does a little different. Both of these had last year's queens in them, and I did the Demaree on them. No swarming whatsoever. This little hive sitting off by itself over here. I originally had a 4-way mating nuke over here, and once I pulled all the queens out, I just pulled the 4-way off and dropped a 10-frame box there. Left a bunch of the frames of bees and brood, all the field force, left one of the queens on the last round of queen rearing on there, and just kind of let them go to town. They really expanded nicely, but they didn't have near enough honey going into winter, so I was able to grab one of the honey boxes off of one of the big colonies and drop on top, so they're good to go for this winter. This box I'll probably end up moving around to a different location before spring. I just left it here for the time being. I still need to get a piece of wire put on for the mouse guard, but I do have the entry reduced down. They looked healthy going into winter so far. Expect to have a good healthy colony coming out of winter next spring. Here's another example of using a entry queen excluder as a mouse guard. Works really well. Bees don't seem to mind it. They got used to it really quick. Another standalone colony over here. A little more activity on this one this morning. I've got the entry reduced down with the mouse guard on it. Extra box of honey. They're pretty much ready to go for the year. I just saw a little bit of pollen going in. Not sure what they're collecting or where they're getting it from, but I did see a little pollen just go in the hive. But they're pretty much shut down for the year, ready to go for winter. This stand's only got one box on it instead of two, and I still got some extra equipment to clean up over here. But here's another one ready to go. Bees kind of milling around at the entrance, see one here and there going. Again, there's just not much going on this time of year. Now this one's a double medium going into winter. Just empty nuke boxes stacked around it, but the one hive here is a double medium. Got a young queen, more than enough surplus honey. The top box is packed. The bottom box is probably 70% full. Still need to get the mouse guard on this one and get it reduced down a little bit so there's not so much cold air blowing in. This one needs a box replaced in the spring. It's got a pretty rotten corner on it. They're pretty much good to go for winter also. Just got to get the mouse guards put on. I've used this hive this year as a to pull brood out of to boost up some of the smaller ones. Okay, double medium, young queen, going into winter, pretty much ready to go. Get my entry reduced down a little bit and get the mouse guard put on. Here's another double medium. Now this one still has a queen excluder in. I got to get that pulled out today. Get the entry all finished up. Empty nuke boxes stacked up next to it. Then we got one more up here. A deep and a medium. Now this has got one of my older queens that was in a production colony. Put her in this one to keep her as a backup. Still got to do the entry work on it, but it's they're ready to go. Good healthy population, a lot of food. Here's a couple nukes that we're going through winter with. You don't see much activity at them, but they are just absolutely full of bees. Now these actually have some of my older queens in them, ones I pulled out of production colonies. They overwinter really well in these 5/5s. We keep some of the better older queens as backups just in case you have a problem.